game over, man. It's game over.
Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. If you search D&D Level 1 on YouTube, you'll probably get tons of videos about how god-awful it is to play D&D when a rough tickling session is enough to have your character keel over and die. Because of this, a lot of people like to skip Level 1 and just start their players at like Level 3 or Level 5. But I gotta say, I actually enjoy the concept of being mega weak at Level 1. In media, I really dislike characters who are just given everything without having to work for it. Level 1 humbles the players a bit and lets them facilitate the growth of their characters both as people and as a fighting force. However, some people can't handle the idea of not being the ultimate badass right out of the starting gate. The story I have for you today stars a player who can't stand the thought of not being the center of the entire galaxy at Level 1. And the incredibly rude shenanigans that led to this DM banning the one and only player they've ever banned after an RPG career of 30 years. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Enjoy. This week's story comes from Reddit user Tahine in My Veins and is titled, "Well, after 30 years of TTRPGs, I finally had to remove a problem player." Therapeutic rant. I've just started a several-month pause on gaming to deal with life stuff, but my last official act as founder of my TTRPG group was to boot a problem player, so my friends could power on without having to deal with an issue I'm at least somewhat responsible for, having lacked the courage to pull the band-aid off sooner. I don't want to shit on any specific style of play, people like what they like. But if I'm talking about a style of play being a problem, you can probably guess Problem Player was a power gamer and the rest of us are not. I want to emphasize power gamer means all the associated negative traits and stereotypes that come with that. We've had optimizers and min-maxers before, but those other players were creative, cooperative, generous, etc., etc. Problem Player went out of his way to dominate every encounter, main character style. A recent glaring example was an insistence on rolling for a check that another player had just successfully made. He would talk over other players, try to micromanage how other players played their characters, and would speedrun through any role-playing whatsoever, including critical investigative set pieces, often with a brash, "anyway," or "okay," and often treated out-of-character social interactions with the same cavalier disdain. Problem Player also had trouble accepting loss of any sort, and indeed any situation where their character was not the biggest badass in the room. This includes frequent rules lawyering, getting visibly upset out of character when his character suffered even minor injury, and going so far as to veto game systems based exclusively on the fact that he doesn't like to lose. Any system he didn't know he could optimize his character into an undefeatable killing machine was just off the table. It should come as no surprise that Problem Player was a shit role player and was only capable of playing edgy loners with a mysterious past. In 3 years and 3 campaigns across 2 different systems, Problem Player's character personalities were completely indistinguishable and interchangeable with one another. Nothing encapsulates Problem Player more than this exchange at the start of our last campaign, when the GM set up an opportunity for the players to tell each other a little bit about their characters. "I'm a rogue." Crickets. Period. That was it. It was not until the end of the second session that we ever learned that his character in this campaign was a woman. The most backstory I ever got from him was for his first campaign with us. His character had been the first mate on board the legendary flagship of the most feared and dreaded pirate fleet in the cosmos. Now he's seen the light and is trying to change his ways, but his betrayal of his oldest friend, commander of the pirate fleet, means an armada is now searching the galaxy high and low, hell-bent on exacting revenge. Let's table the fact that he abandoned a life of crime and mass murder to take up, from the way he went on to play his character, a life of crime and mass murder, and remind ourselves that this was his background for a first-level character. And now he clearly wants me to incorporate his backstory into the campaign. F*** you. I could go on and on and on. Yikes, a power gamer who not only tries to overpower the game, but also the other players and the story. Yeah, you don't need me to tell you that this guy isn't going to be fun to mess around and roll dice with. I think the reason why we get so many people wanting to be gods at level 1 comes down to the media we consume. If you've seen anything made by Disney in the past 5 years, you'll know that stupid things like character flaws and character development aren't really something they like to concern themselves with. And with industry writers like these, it's no wonder that they're afraid AI is going to take their jobs. Topical jokes aside, I think it's prudent to mention just how important the concept of a session 0 is for these kind of players. Every time I run a campaign that starts at level 1, I like to sit my players down regardless of their experience level and explain to them that I would like to tell a rags to riches story with them. Notice how I said with them and not for them. I want to plant the seed in their brains that their backstory is to explain the rags part, and their actions in-game facilitates the to riches story with them. Instead of feeling like they're being drug along and denied the story that they want to tell, they are being invited to create a character that contributes to the overall theme that our overall story is trying to convey. D&D is a team game, so making the actual creation of the game a team activity can't hurt, right? Look at me, acting like this guy can see reason and isn't just someone who is just completely oblivious and thinks himself at the center of the entire world. You'd never believe I've been doing this for 2 years, huh? I could defend myself by saying I wanted to be a nice guy. Wanted my table to be open to everyone. I could say I suspect that he might be on the spectrum, which might explain why he is worse at reading social cues than anyone else I've ever gamed with, or even anyone else I've ever met. When I, near tears, explained to the group that I needed to take several months off from gaming to focus on my partner's cancer-related health crisis and surgeries, and care for our child, his response was to crack a joke about whether the wife would let you keep playing. It was so offensive to me that I had to wonder if he could even help himself, even capable of understanding basic human emotional interaction, because surely no neurotypical person would react in such a way. I could point out that it wasn't all negative and that there were moments of, if not good role-playing, then at least shrewd gaming. That his encyclopedic near-photographic memorization of the rules came in handy, and that he even made me laugh a handful of times over the years we gamed together. I could mention that I did talk to him at least once early on about his habit of suggesting how other players should manage combat, down to what weapons they should use and who they should attack. And the tone he took was a turnoff, and he course-corrected, minimally for a little while, and that there were good days and bad days, and on the best days, his dynamic with the rest of the table was almost passable for friendship. But there have been just too many bad days. So many bad days. The default was bad days. And life is too short to game at a table with a problem player who suffocates everyone's joy and imagination with the insistence of treating every single session like it was a competitive first-person shooter. You are free, problem player. There are other groups out there who enjoy this style of play, who won't grow tired by the shallowness of your exclusive kill shit and get all the treasure character motivations, who perhaps will be more patient with whatever affliction it is you have. You are not the worst person I've ever met or even gamed with. That would have been too easy. I would have booted you immediately. You found the perfect balance of being annoying enough to sully the experience for everyone, without touching any of the explicit third rails and being pitiful enough that no one had the heart to boot you, despite us all desperately wanting to for a very long time. Well done? Anyone still reading this, problem players do not have to cross any explicit red lines before you ask them to leave. They don't have to be sexist or racist or homophobic. They don't even have to be directly, personally insulting you. All that's needed is for them to detract from the fun that you and the rest of the party get from gaming. No one is perfect, but once the bother that they bring to the table outweighs the benefit, well, sayonara. My last 3 years of gaming has included some of the best TTRPGers I have ever had the pleasure to game with in 3 decades. And it's time to fish the turd out of the punch bowl. My biggest regret is putting my friends through this by not having the courage to have pulled the plug sooner. Indeed, inviting you to the table at all is the one thing I wish I could change in the 30 years of gaming. Bravo. You will live on in infamy. End of story. Dude, I love that little bit towards the end there from OP. There doesn't need to be a huge earth-shattering event for you to realize that someone is just not a right fit for your game group, and that's okay. The reality is that life is way too short for sucky D&D. Now, I'm no psychologist, but I definitely think that OP was onto something with the whole being on the spectrum bit. The problem player obviously has a hard time reading social cues and isn't really aware of how his actions affect the enjoyment of the party. That's an explanation, not an excuse, mind you. There's way too many people who don't understand how the spectrum works and will look at someone with autism doing something awful and think to themselves something along the lines of, "Aw, poor guy can't help it." I'm willing to bet that a big chunk of the problem players we've seen on this channel might be found somewhere on the spectrum. Does that excuse their actions? No, of course not. It's the Dungeons & Dragons community. Most of us has got a splash of the tism. People with autism are still people, and to treat them like their actions aren't the direct result of decisions that they make is kinda dehumanizing when you think about it. But again, disclaimer, I'm not a mental health professional and I'm pretty sure I'm neurotypical. I don't know, it's a weird thing in my case. Based on my actions and mannerisms, I probably got autism in the same way that ballpark hot dogs probably are made from parts of a cow. The truth being that nobody has any fucking idea. Speaking of things that I have no idea about, we have a fan art submission this week. That's right, how about we take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake? This week's fan art comes from viewer Miravin and depicts an adorable creature that they have dubbed a Dragglebear on their Redbubble shop, which is linked in the description. Now, I don't know what it means to be a Dragglebear, but I do know for a fact that that is one fine orb. Alright everyone, now we're going to go ahead and use the yoga balls. Oh damn it, he's back! Leave me alone, I wish to ponder my orb. Thank you again, Miravan, for submitting your art. If you'd like to see your fan art featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.